Hey guys, it's Matt. I finally understand some of the comments around Joe Rogan and Billy Corrigan. Apparently, Billy Corrigan of the Smashing Pumpkins was on the Joe Rogan show like 10 days ago or something. I didn't know. I don't watch the Joe Rogan show. Matt, I don't participate in it either, okay? They both were on together. Well, Matt, how did you pull that off? Which one were you? I see the Joe Rogan a little bit more than the Billy Corgan. I don't see the Billy Corgan. Everybody that's bald, doesn't look like Billy Corgan. Everybody that's bald, whatever. So they've moved. This will probably develop into a more reality-centric conversation as it typically does. Oh, hi, Zara. I want to say hi. The baseball season, they move up. The opening day, they move up every year. And it's now today, which is March, for a limited number of teams. It's March 18th. I don't know what cities they're playing in. I hope to God they get the biggest snowstorms. I hope they're out there in the snow, freezing their asses off. Baseball, I'm sorry. I mean, baseball opening season should not be in the middle of March. It is absolutely ridiculous. Come here, Zara. People want to say hi. Come here, Zara. Come here, Zara. Now, the Phillies and most teams have to wait another week or so. And it's 162 games. So Philadelphia, the fans here have been in crisis, so they don't know what to do with them. They won the Super Bowl. Okay, that was wonderful. Then they went out to Cotman and Bustleton Avenue, and they threw their beer cans all over the place, and they climbed their greased poles. They greased the poles so they don't climb up them. There was actually somebody that died, I think this year, from somebody climbing up a pole. Anyway, so they grease the poles, or they grease a lot of the poles. They have nothing to do. They're not Philadelphia fans. They're not NASCAR fans at all. They will Daytona 500. Oh, they don't want no part of that. They don't watch Formula One, IMSA. So there's nothing on. They watch a little college basketball, I would say, but it's just a countdown until Philly's opening season or opening day, which is next week, March 18th. What is it? 2 or 4 teams open up opening day. I'd laugh my ass off if there was a gigantic snowstorm. 100, and then there'll be 162 games. 162. They play basically. They play 5 or 6 days a week. It is. I haven't watched a Phillies game through for probably about 20 years. Well, I guess they were the World Series. I watched a few games, but other than that, I haven't watched a regular season game through for 20 years. I just don't. It's so boring. I just don't get it, and it's offensive. The guys that sit the bench, people that don't even play, are making $10 to $12 million a year. Well, maybe not. They got the real bench warmers. They're still making $4 or $5 or $6 million a year, as they should, as they all do. But it's an absolute joke, guys. I wanted to talk about the movie Schindler's List. I appreciate those that went to the freevoice.io video on Sunday, and it wasn't like I was trying not to talk about the topic or anything. I mean, just it was watching of the movie Schindler's List that created the need to make Sunday's video on freevoice.io. And bot, this is a movie review about Schindler's List. Hashtag Schindler's List. Hashtag Schindler's List is the greatest movie of all time. Hashtag Liam Neeson is the greatest actor of all time. Hashtag bot. Look, the German people should be extremely, or maybe they are extremely upset. But of course, they can't say anything. They know they can't, even to each other. They've been shamed. They can't say anything. It's the hair. It's her hair. I've got to give her that. There's a thing called a Furminator. It's this brush with these little tines. In the spring, mostly, just a bit, right when it's starting to get warm. I mean, even though she's a short hair, she'll shed like crazy. It's all up in my. I need to Furminate her. A whole nother cat will come out when I do this today. I might have to sneeze. Okay, guys, I'm back. I should be good. The movie Schindler's List is offensive to the German people because obviously I can't get into the details here. It's just a continuation of some things I wanted to say at freevoice.io. It paints the entire German army and pretty much the German people out to be just bloodthirsty, demonic vampires. I'm sure many of the atrocities, as they're documented by those that were in certain situations or held in certain camps, I'm sure many of the documented atrocities are real. But in terms of the presentation that Schindler's List makes, as well as the presentation from 50 other Hollywood movies, I mean, you just watch that. And again, maybe there was a madman commandant of that camp. That camp was called Krakow. It was not the other one. It was a smaller one. Maybe that person was a madman. Maybe those types of horrible, horrible things went on. But the message to the audience as they watch is all of Germany was like that. And it was over the top. I mean, it was every single German officer, whenever they get a chance to get up in the face of "Where's your papers?" and they scream and yell. I mean, come on. That's if anybody getting upset or if anybody stumbling upon this video, that is the message that the audience takes away from watching that movie. Absolutely. That all of them were like that. Come on. Every chance to scream in front. "Where are your papers?" And then they're reaching for their gun. Everyone. Come on. I can't say much. But it's just, that is the movie, the quintessential movie to most people that represents the big H. That is the movie. And one last time, because people hear what they want to hear. Many of the documented atrocities, meaning this person wrote in a diary or wrote a book later that they survived this camp, those documented accounts are real. But what this system does and what history has done through these types of movies is paint the picture that all of Germany was a madman, raving, lunatics, vampiric, demonic vampires. Vampiric vampires. Whatever. Ridiculous. I can't say any more, but there's many other topics here, guys. I'll be right back. The last 12-minute segment I recorded, just nothing there. I'll show you the screenshot of what happens. It could be a space issue. I freed up 4 or 5 gigs. It shouldn't happen again. I got to keep each segment to 5 to 7 minutes. Just this, thanks for coming. This thing drops down. There's no video here. I don't know why it's been doing this for the last 6 months. Anyway, we'll keep the segments shorter. I was just doing news headlines anyway. This particular one, guys, I don't know how to talk about. Reality breakdown. Even the way they present wars to us anymore makes no sense. There's no common sense whatsoever associated with, I guess, any of the major presentations that they somehow pass off to the masses. But the ceasefire in Gaza is off. The bombing has begun again. More burned out parts of Gaza and more buildings exploding and more people crying in the streets. And just start the bombing runs again, Israel. And the reason they say is the Hamas won't release more hostages. And I don't even know how to talk about this, guys. The whole thing makes no sense. And I guess I am going to stop the recording after this segment just to make sure each segment loads and not to have the same issue again. But for example, why does one hold a hostage for some sort of leverage? I mean, I've never, this isn't my area of expertise, but isn't that why bank robbers have a hostage? So they can continue doing what they're doing without the police storming in. Well, in this case, it's just the opposite, but everybody around us thinks it's absolutely normal. The holding of hostages creates the F-16s, F-18s, highly sophisticated weaponry, cruise missiles bombing out Gaza by holding the hostages. So where's the leverage you're getting by holding what are you getting by holding hostages? They're using that as the reason for the bombing and the continuation of the war. So since the whole world is watching, if anything were real, to me, it's a one world system. This is the greatest example of all time of even if it's real, it's fake. It's very real. The atrocities, the death is very real. But if it's planned out and scripted and meant to be by a one world system, then even if it's real, It's fake. If it's in any way part of a script, a reality script, or what was intended or planned, well, that by definition is fake. So let me get this straight. You're holding hostages, and instead of gaining leverage, it's just the opposite happening. They're bombing because you're holding the hostages. But apparently, again, there are some rules I think they have to play by in terms of how they make their presentation of the world. Well, they could say, we'll release the hostages with the world watching if you stop the bombing. And then you would think if they could create that situation, they would have to hold to their end of the bargain. But again, I keep having to have conversations about that as if real people are negotiating real things. And it's who knows what, it's a reality breakdown. The other thing that doesn't make any sense to me, why haven't the people of Gaza just turned on Hamas at this point? Hamas has been responsible for the complete obliteration of their livelihood, of their businesses, of where they live. I guess the first grade truthers still believe it's just cake and a lake, just like they said about Ukraine. And it's managed. See the difference? I guess they don't see the difference. It's a managed war, or something that was intended by the one world system. If it's managed, it's not like if you go out there, it's just Disneyland and picnics. And there's nothing going on. That's what the first grade truther believes. Many still believe that about Ukraine. It's managed. It's not a normal situation. It's not a normal war. But the first grade truther will yell, "No, there's no destruction. Okay, there's no reason to get. Hopefully, these people are not at this channel. It's not. I'm not saying it's legitimate. Am I? It's same with Gaza. There's death. You think the Not Milk doesn't want to bring death? It's not just picnics and Disneyland. The burned out buildings, it's not AI, it's real. The bombed out buildings are real. But is that legitimate too? No, it's managed. But if it was real, or anything about it were real, wouldn't the Gaza people have turned on Hamas at this point? They might remember 45 years ago saying we had a somewhat normal life. Now, sorry to not use the right words if somebody yelling at me, but if you lived in Gaza, okay, compared to what it is now, starting to look like Aleppo, parts of Syria. Again, Zara's hair, just like, what the hell? How long has that been in my mouth? And maybe it's not. Anyway, maybe it's not Zara's hair, Matt. What have you been doing? It's nothing. Trust me. So Aleppo, it's starting to look more like that. The people that live in Gaza, we had a somewhat, for us, normal life 4 or 5 years ago. And why aren't they turning on Hamas themselves? Look, you brought this upon us, and what are we going to get out of it? Israel just going to say, we'll leave. What's going to happen? There is no end game. Why haven't the people of Gaza and the Palestinians turned on Hamas? It makes no sense. I can't talk about it because I don't even know. There's zero common sense. It's a complete reality breakdown, but everybody around us just thinks it's normal. So we'll go on to another topic. Here's a headline. Astronauts headed back to Earth can say goodbye to blurry eyes, puffy faces, chicken legs, and a little extra height. Oh, sure. Apparently, these you astronautas, that's from Armageddon. They're coming back after 9 or 10 or 11 months, or whatever. They're stuck up there. We've seen some of these headlines. But this is the truth drop right here. Say goodbye to blurry eyes, puffy faces, chicken legs, the wear and tear on their body, they're saying, of being on the ISS. Well, that's the whole problem. That's what we've been pointing out for over 10 years. It's always shiny, happy people. Shiny, happy people. They're always like, yay, who are we going to? We're going to do a live stream with the kindergarten today. They look great. I've talked about this example before, but it's applicable. In the Jack Nicholson, Michael Keaton Batman, where the Joker had put some poison in the makeup, in the bot. I'm talking about the movie Batman. Poison. So the news anchors, remember, they looked uglier and uglier, and the bags under the eyes. Every single broadcast they got for comedic effect. But that's what would happen to those in the ISS, as it states here. Say goodbye to blurry eyes, puffy faces. It never happens. It's always shiny, happy people that look like they just got 10 hours of sleep at the Four Seasons Hotel. Within 2 weeks, these people would look like absolute hell. We've talked about it many times. And nobody around us, again, we're just one of those people. You're not sleeping in your bed. You're sleeping in some upright coffin. If anything were real, which, Matt, no, nobody's flying around up there. You know my opinion on this. But if it were real, you'd be in some sort of upright coffin, strapped in, be cold, and there would be the stress, like they've presented to everybody. One little meteorite the size of a penny rips through the thing. Everybody's immediately dead, right? And they say, how much space junk do they say is out there? For 10 years, they've been telling us about 40,000 satellites and space junk. And Kim Jong-il or whatever, he'd be illin. He sends his junk up and it breaks and all the. I mean, if they would, the stress of just being hit by a small meteorite or something. And there are, I don't really know what meteorites are. You know, the presentation of what they say space is, I don't buy. But I have been on a beach at night where somebody said, we got to get up at midnight to see a meteor shower. And there was something that the news even talked about it. There was some sort of meteor shower where it was way up there, but every few seconds it was just, you wait and just really little streaks of things. Oh, this was 25 years ago. That's a meteor shower. Yeah, glad you got me up. Well, I saw it, and I guess I'm glad I saw it. So if there was as many things up there as they say, one little thing goes into the ISS that everybody's immediately going to die, but they never have an issue. You'd think at least they would fake an issue, like part of the whatever section just gets blown off and they have to isolate. You'd think they would do that, and I guess I either just gave them a great idea or just took a great idea that they were about to execute off the table because I was talking about it before it happened. Maybe they were about to fake it, and they would have to then, what do they say, shelter in place on a certain part of the ISS. They were probably just ready to fake that tomorrow until I started talking about it. But the stress of that would start to show. The gastrointestinal wouldn't work right, and 2 weeks they would look like absolute hell, and they're always shiny, happy people. So this is some sort of a truth drop. They have to give you the truth. Say goodbye to blurry eyes, puffy faces, chicken legs. They don't show any signs, but that's the truth of what they're saying here, and it's just, as usual, a mockery to the masses that fall for every bit of it, as they all do. I'm going to stop this early. Make sure we keep recording. I'm still at CNN. Trump said he plans to release the unredacted files associated with the John F. Kennedy assassination today. Really? Well, there was supposedly a gigantic release in his first term. And what did we find out? Nothing. And every other president promises a release, and sometimes they release, this is going to be unredacted. And what will happen? Nothing, but the people will fall for it again. This reality is very hard to take, guys. This life is difficult. It is difficult on those of us who have left the ship of fools. I mean, the same scripts play out. It's many of the same things playing out in his second term that they ran in the first term. They did this already. Not Ilk, you did this already. Yeah, Dad, what's that? Yeah, Dad, you told us. What's that from? Snatch. Yeah, Dad, you told us. So the jeweler. The jeweler has twin daughters in Snatch. Not a Tarantino movie, but similar to a Tarantino movie and better in many regards. Snatch is a classic. So we've got that to look forward to today. What really happened to JFK? Yeah, okay. They just keep pulling the same nonsense. Hear what it doesn't. I thought it said Kissinger. Hear what Kinzinger, Kinzinger. Hear what Kinzinger thinks about Trump calling pardon void. Who's Kinzinger? Is the Not Milk fake reality so confused that it has to have a name like it's not Kissinger, it's Kinzinger. Now they have a Kinzinger, and before a couple years ago they had a Kissinger. Just come up with another name, Not Milk. I mean, there's no creativity. Now you have to use Kinzinger like Kissinger. That's gone. He's dead. Okay, yeah, who is Kinzinger? Am I supposed to? They don't even give a first name. Am I supposed to know who this is? What calling pardon void? What does this even mean? Oh, God. A Ukrainian city was invaded by Russia, then liberated 8 months later. This is what life is like there now. Let me just regroup here. This is just all of reality is broken down, and we've said this for 5 years. All right, guys, F these headlines. The people around us should be ashamed of themselves. I mean, we never thought it could sink this low, but let's have more of a reality discussion. I was noticing this recently. I haven't talked about it. One of the main reasons for their major events, and even some of the minor events, is the Not Milk is big on reality demarcation lines. And usually when we talk about the big event in September 2001, where the job application was submitted, and we talk about what happened in 2020 with C, the V, Not Milk uses this, and somehow they get something out of this as well. And I wonder if you've noticed this, as a demarcation line, meaning the world before the 7-Eleven job application, things start being referred to as before CV or after CV. And it's not the only reason they do the big events, of course, but they're very clear in their intention when they run these sorts of schemes and scams to create a demarcation line. It's a way of manipulating the timeline, so to speak. I don't really understand it, but I've been thinking about it. I don't have it in any way figured out. I probably won't, but you notice how many times this in the pre 7-Eleven job world, or it creates a stamp in the timeline. Prior to 2020, or so. I don't really even know how to talk about it. I just know that is something that is very important to them. When a big event is presented, it becomes I don't have the right word. It just becomes a gigantic demarcation line to separate eras or timelines, and what the Not Milk gets out of that, I don't know, but I just wanted to mention it. It appears that the movie reviewer channels are still speculating as to whether Kathleen Kennedy at Disney Lucasfilm will be leaving this summer or at the end of this year. I think it was Robot Head a week ago that made a video that started off with the Wizard of Oz, Ding Dong, the witch is dead. I know this isn't typically things that we talk about on this channel, but I can't present the same reality half page every time. This is absolutely fascinating to me. It is a reality breakdown to me, and I'm going to talk about it. It's something I just have to get off my chest. This woman, Kathleen Kennedy, now she is the head person at all of Lucasfilm. What was bought from George Lucas, she has full authority over. So she, over Bob Iger and everything else, you have to blame her. Star Wars has been completely destroyed. The last 4 series associated with Star Wars, Ahsoka, what was the other one? The Acolyte, complete embarrassments, an absolute trashing of Star Wars through and through. Nobody liked it. It was almost so bad it was good. It was so embarrassing. It was almost like one of those things you watch it's because it's so bad it's good. Also a complete destruction and trashing of Indiana Jones. So it is incredible. And here's what's fascinating to me, guys. We generally know how the Not Milk does business, but what do the people that work at Disney even think when they go into work? They have some sort of a corporate headquarters at Burbank. Anything were real, she would have been removed after the second of the Rey movies, The Force Awakens and the Last Jedi and all that trash. But failure after failure, destruction after destruction, she just keeps her job year after year, her $50, $100 million a year, whatever it may be. Where are the major shareholders on all this? It just doesn't make any sense. It's a complete reality breakdown how she could have held her job when financially they're struggling. Pixar's in disarray. I know she's not primarily responsible for Marvel and the Iron Man and what are they called, the Avengers and all that, but that's destroyed. Everything's destroyed, and yet year after year she just keeps coming back. Not Milk operators, they have a plan, and sometimes that plan or that strategy is sometimes hard to see, even by us. But what's fascinating to me, and the reason I wanted to make this segment was, what do the people, again, just how many people work at this Burbank corporate headquarters at Disney? There's like 6, 7, 8,000 people there, maybe. Okay, I had to go look it up. I know it got brighter outside. I got darker, but I can't. You don't. Nobody nobody wants that. I had to go look it up. Over 10,000 employees at the Burbank corporate office. 225,000 employees. I think it said worldwide. Again, most are working at the parks all over the world, etc. So I think about this a lot. Like the regular employee that for whatever reason goes into the corporate offices in Burbank, whether they work in human resource or whatever. I mean, they're all, they know, I mean, they follow, of course, what their own company's doing and putting out. What are they saying between and amongst themselves? Do they sit down and watch absolute junk, garbage, trash like The Alkalite and Ahsoka? And do they think it's good, or are they that much on the download? This fascinates me. I'm going to end this segment in a minute, but I just have to get this out. I mean, do they whisper among themselves? Yeah, I watched the first episode of Ahsoka. It was just as bad as they said. What are they doing over there, Kathleen? Are they talking amongst themselves? Do they keep it quiet? Do they pretend like the golden age of Disney's still there? And there was, guys, if you're over age 40, I mean, it was one after another of just mega hit. And they should have been proud of themselves. The Little Mermaid, The Lion King. I know they're all stolen from other stories and legends around the world, but The Hunchback of Notre Dame, they would put out a major, The Beauty and the Beast or whatever. These were real, very well done animated movies for kids that adults could enjoy. Pixar was doing a great job with all the stuff they were putting out, Toy Story 1, 2, etc. And are they still pretending that Disney's still here? Or what do the employees say when they walk down the hall together? I'm going to have to talk to one at some point. At some point, find somebody that worked in that Burbank office during the reign of Kathleen Kennedy to see what the rumors were and what people were saying. And again, we leave on the table the NPC, the organic portal, beings here that aren't the same as you and I. And maybe just everything's great. I don't know. It's totally bizarre. Because what they've put out for 10 years now has been absolute trash across the board. Pixar's been ruined. Marvel's been ruined. Star Wars has been that whole thing didn't make sense. It was almost like we've talked about George Lucas was, what did we call him? We made a verb out of it. He was vanilla iced. He was shug-knighted. No, that's what it was. It wasn't vanilla iced. The verb was he was shug-knighted. Where, those legends and lores, who knows what Suge Knight showed up at Vanilla Ice's Miami apartment or something and hung him out the window or pushed him, held him over the balcony. You're going to sign over Ice Ice Baby to my death row records or whatever. He was Suge Knighted. But George Lucas, I mean, guys, even that's a script. Something. Look at George Lucas signing with Bob Iger, signing over Star Wars and everything he owns, all the intellectual properties. And if you really want to act like you know what you're talking about, you say IPs. If you, remember at Thanksgiving, if you really want to be impressive, say IPs, and half the family will be like, "Oh, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to look stupid." He looks a little, but that's part of the script. It's all a script. People say he looks uncomfortable signing with Bob Iger. He was Suge-knighted. He was almost forced into the deal. Well, the pictures they released where he looks very uncomfortable, of course, that's all part of the script. It's not like he just was uncomfortable, even though he might have been Suge-knighted and forced the Not-Nilk, pulled up with 7 black long limousines, and certain people got out and said, George, well, how did you get in here? He has a whole, supposedly, I don't know what he has now, and I've never been there, and I've never been invited for tea. Supposedly he has this huge ranch complex, Mill Valley or Marin County, is it, on the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge, where the brown hills in the summer back there at Larkspur, and I don't know, and this is where the Lucasfilm was for years too, whatever campus and how many hundreds of acres, obviously, of course, the rich get richer. He bought all that, I'm sure, in the 70s, and now Now it's worth millions of dollars per square foot, but whatever. So how did you get in here? What do see? You might have heard about us, George. There's the president of the United States. Now, I think George, I think understands not milk. He was Suge Knighted. Says we. Then you heard like there's handlers of the president of the United States. There's Jared Kushner. There's Dick Cheney for George W. Bush. We're many levels above that. You may have heard of they throw out these secret societies of which George Lucas is probably a part of. Anyway, this is all for fun. George Lucas would know who's getting out of the black limousines. George, you're going to sell to Disney and see, well, is Disney going to improve on my creation and my product and my Skywalker? And no, they're going to ruin it, George. It's time. Oh, I have to participate in that. It's time for my stuff to be destroyed. It's time for your stuff to be destroyed, George. Well, what do I get? Measly $3.8 to $4 billion, of which half is just crap Disney stock that's going to go in the shitter once they destroy everything. You're going to get $2 billion in cash. Now, that is ridiculous in and of itself. I mean, nobody talked about it, just was normal to everybody. $2 billion in cash. I mean, I'm not a real expert, and my past life was not evaluating Fortune 100 companies for sale, or I wasn't on the team of, what was it, in Pretty Woman, it was, I almost said, why did I almost say Jeff Daniels? Jeff Daniels was not in Pretty Woman. It was Richard Gere who would break up the companies and know that the valuation after the breakup and the slice and dicing the company is going to be worth more than what the company was as a whole. That's not my area of expertise. And it wasn't Jeff Daniels from Dumb and Dumber. It was Richard Gere. But I know, and I would be sure of this, that it's not worth $2 billion cash and $2 more billion in stock. Star Wars would have been worth $20 billion, $25 billion at the time. If you take care of your IP, it's a cash cow that will pay you for 100 years. And with inflation, everything, that $20 billion will be nothing. And especially when they convert to the new digital currency and the greenback becomes worthless, that $20 billion will become nothing by 2030. Be like paying out to a company $1.2 billion, $20 billion, nothing. Hyperinflation. Of course, we're seeing it already. So that was part, the $2 billion in cash they paid George was just part of the script of how everything played out, a script to destroy it all from day one. And even the pictures of him looking uncomfortable and people, oh, look, you can see how he doesn't look like something's not right. No, he's posing. He knows everything that's going to happen. The way that pictures were presented was all part of the script. And we've talked about in the past, what do they get out of destroying all of Star Wars? Just not ready to talk about it. It is very important for them to destroy it, to destroy the link to the past, to 1977. Maybe it's possible there were some uplifting spiritual messages or something that came out of the 1977 Star Wars that should have never come out. And they know how reality works, and they know how the quantum works, and they know how retrocausality works, and they're aware of that affecting the future, or the present affects the past. There's no doubt about that. It's not just those triggered by the double slit experiment and those triggered by the double slit eraser experiment. It's generally anybody that's in the know in terms of this, how this reality works, would agree that the past is linked to the present, which is linked to the future, and any one affects the other two aspects. The past can somehow be affected by the present, whether it just be something minor like retrocausalities that people would call Mandela effect, residual evidence pieces, or whatever it may be. But it does affect the past. Now, you might think it's minor. It doesn't go back real strong. It affects the future very strong. It's not equal, and that's probably likely. I can't see how it would be equal. But anyway, so destroying Star Wars now in some way destroys something that maybe shouldn't have gotten out in the past. And the very minimum, even if you're not into all this, this sort of mystical reality talk and all this stuff that's being thrown out by me, you could still say that, well, if the new generation sees Star Wars as junk now, then they will, if they see it as junk now, then they will associate the past Star Wars as junk and maybe anybody under age 30 may have no interest in it at all, and they'll snuff it out permanently, and it'll just quietly go away. That could be the intention. I went real into weird places. I went long. I cut the whole section off, and I'll just wrap it up with this. I guess I'll end this video with this topic. It's one of my favorites. I talk about it about once a year. I think it was actually originally brought up by my dad's friend who I have lunch with. Is he 85 now? No way. 80. See, anyway, he brought it up, and then I ran with it. I've talked to you about it a few times. Basically said something like, how come when we reach, he likes talking to me about certain things like JFK, conspiracy and things like that. He'll listen. He thinks my viewpoints, I'm sure, a little bit out there, but he's generally open, very open to some of the things we discuss. So I just want to tell you, where he's coming from. He's not going to be on board with where we are, but open to listening in terms of the topics we discuss. Anyway, he said, how come when we get to be like 75 or something, or the government just doesn't leave you alone. We've paid enough taxes, or proper school taxes, or property tax, or local. Shouldn't there be something for an older person when they reach whatever the number may be? We can debate it. Maybe it's 70, maybe it's 75. That you've done enough, and there won't be any more school tax. There won't be any more property tax, unless it's if you have to have minimum standards of living somewhat meagerly or reasonably. Obviously, if you have some gigantic 20-room mansion, fine, whatever, continue to pay in. You've got $40 million sitting in the bank, fine, okay. But he's basically saying somebody that just is living off Social Security, and maybe they have a small pension from their job. These pensions still exist for some people. They will always exist for teachers and firefighters and things like that. But pension and no other income. You living in your same house that's worth under a certain amount for 20 years, and why don't they just leave you alone? It's a great point. To me, it is another reality giveaway if the world were real. And I know that if there was a politician and any of them were actually working for us, one would have come 20 years ago and said, somebody that reaches age 75 and living in their same home, and they're not taking in really any more income than the pensions providing and Social Security, maybe we should just leave them alone. No more property tax, school, income filings, and maybe you could extend it into other things. Again, but what would happen? That same old conversation about, belts are tight as it is, and there's fiscal issues and fiscal crises all around, which is all a lie, of course. I mean, it was proven out 20 years ago that all of these municipalities and cities would be completely belly up. There would be no money to fund firefighters, police force. This would have happened 15 to 20 years ago. The entire state of California and Illinois would have gone bankrupt. They would have had to slash everything. There would be no social services. Simply, there's never a fiscal crisis ever, because the Treasury and what's called the Fed and the old money, you've heard it a million times. We'll keep this conversation to a minimum. They print up, just on a computer in a millisecond, whatever the states need or the municipalities need. California needs $50 billion. Here you go. Created in a second, and nobody has to know. The inflationary effect is actually quite small because it just is used to keep the lights on. It's used to continue to pay the pensions. And there's a lot of waste, of course, but it's not what they're doing. It's no different, the situation today, than it was yesterday. If the money truly were to run out and they didn't just print up, 10, $20 trillion off books that never makes it on what's called the Fed balance sheet. Some idiot right now is trying to tell me, well, Matt, everything they print up has to be shown to the public on the Fed balance sheet. Really? There's no money. That doesn't make the official books. Yeah, right. I wish we just were one of those people, I guess. No, they print up trillions off books, off the Fed balance sheet. If you inject it into California, there's no real inflationary effect because all you're doing is just eliminating the crisis. Instead of California saying we can't open our doors, all firefighters have to go home, nobody can be paid, it's just the same situation that they're just keeping the same situation that they had yesterday. Although they have, expanded out with all these cities miraculously get these huge cash injections, and cities like Nashville just start to boom for almost no reason. Oh yeah, country music, that's just feeding all of Nashville. And the other cities are allowed to go into wasteland like Atlantic City and Detroit and things like that. San Francisco's going into wasteland. I think they'll bring that back. They won't let it get. It just San Francisco is too occult wise, or it's just too important to not know. They won't let that completely go down. They'll let it continue to degrade and devolve, and same with Paris. But that's too important to them as well. They'll at some point, there'll be an industry that brings it back. All not milk created. It won't get much lower, in my opinion. It won't be like Escape from L.A. or Escape from New York. I don't think the not milk will let it implode. Why they're doing to it what they're doing is a complicated topic of conversation. But back to what we're saying about just letting somebody age 75 alone, they still have conditioned people to just put forth the same bullshit. The guy down the road here, the girl up the road here, your neighbor, your Aunt Ginny, they all think there's fiscal issues and concerns, and taxation is needed to pay bills. And I mean, it is not even conspiracy. It's just blatantly obvious for 20 years that money isn't even needed. It's blatantly obvious. All of these municipalities would have gone under. They just get the trillions they need, which means they don't need to take a penny from somebody age 75 that just wants to be left alone. But the not-nil can't have that. They just can't. Somebody that wants to be left alone, that might start thinking and start reading, might read Thoreau and about being left alone and going to the woods to live deliberately. Guys, I don't believe anything comes into modern mainstream without being part of not milk. I don't believe it's possible. So Thoreau is whatever he seems like. Well, that's a rebel, Matt. Not milk doesn't want any part of Thoreau. I don't buy it. If it's so well known and it makes it into movies like the Dead Poets Society, this is really going to rub truthers the wrong way. Or I'm going to make a few enemies here. Carlos Castaneda, is it Don Juan? Don't believe those books could become world famous without the not milk assisting that, without something in it. Maybe you could say at the best case scenario would be the not milk has to show people the truth, Matt, per the rules that you've talked about, the rules of this reality, the contract of what the parameters of what the creeps and the minions have to operate inside of. The truth has to be revealed. You just said it in this video, Matt, with the shiny, happy people from the ISS. No more bags under the eyes. Maybe that is possible. But it's still, what I'm saying is still true, that Carlos Castaneda, the Don Juan stuff, didn't just go world famous on its own. The not milk's like, I don't want that stuff to get out. What do we do? No, it doesn't. Nothing gets world famous without not milk's approval and the not milk pushing it and guiding it along, and just no way. Thoreau and all that, So that is, I am very, very sure of that in my own opinion. I'm not saying I know that for sure, but if something is world famous and prominent, the not milk has allowed it or seen to it. So to me, that has always made me a little skeptical of the Castaneda books. Or I've read bits and pieces. I've never sat down and turned the channel off for 3 weeks and gone and read it about Carlos Castaneda and Don Juan and all that. I haven't done it. Little bits and pieces. So maybe I shouldn't be talking about it. But it doesn't matter. My general rule is whatever it is, it doesn't get to prominence without the not milk's approval. So how does that relate to what we were talking about? We're talking about Thoreau and wanting to go off and live in the woods or whatever, and that was related to that they should leave people age 75 alone. No more taxes, no more. And that's the not milk can't have that. Nobody's ever left alone. You see, as soon as the new year starts, just to put in your head about the control aspect of it, as soon as the new year starts, you're watching a college football bowl game on January 1st or January 3rd or whatever it may be, the tax commercials, the TurboTax commercials, and the H&R Block commercials about filing. That's to just put it in your head. It's just a constant reminder that, I don't want to, who knows? I don't want to say too much here. It's just they don't need it. Put it that way. They don't need a penny of it. it's a control issue. But anyway, I guess I'll wrap it up with that, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll do some different things this week. I need to do a not no travel tours. The last one didn't get a whole lot of views, but the people that like it really like it, and I'm gonna do, if not this week, we'll definitely do we need to go back to Philosophers series and all that. I have a lot of that stuff ready to go as well. Although I'm reading some books and some materials I'm not quite done with, but we have to get back to that stuff. Thanks, guys.